Welcome to the A Little More You podcast. This is a space for women navigating change, for souls who feel the quiet pull of something deeper, something softer, and something more true. Here we slow down, we listen inward, and we make space for the wisdom that's already inside of you. I'm Kendra, and I'm honored to walk this path with you. Let's bring a little more you into the world. If you're listening to this while driving, folding laundry, walking outside, just take one moment before we get started to notice your body for a moment. Notice your breath. Notice the way your body is meeting this moment. Are you rushed? Are you distracted? Moment to just notice. There's something within all of us, within you, within me, within the stranger you pass on the street. We each carry this inner knowing, this internal compass, and a divine and sacred intelligence designed to really help us chart our path through this world while we're alive and here on this earth. And yet so many of us are taught to ignore it. We're never taught to listen to it. And if anything, we are taught kind of the opposite. We are taught to look outward for our path, to gather the opinions of everyone else, to analyze every situation, to make the right choice, to weigh all those pros and cons. How many of y'all had created a pro and con list to make a decision? To ask everyone else what we should do. If you've ever found yourself standing at a crossroads, stuck in your head, turning that decision over and over and over, hoping to find clarity from the outside, you are not doing it wrong. You're responding exactly how you were conditioned to respond, exactly how you were taught to make decisions. And if your inner wisdom has been quietly nudging you to something different lately, maybe tapping on your shoulder, asking you to slow down and listen, you're in the right place. That's what this podcast is all about today. Why you stopped listening in the first place or never started listening in the first place, kind of how that all came about, how to tell the difference between the mental noise in your head and the inner knowing in your heart, and how to begin reconnecting without forcing change or blowing up your life. So by the end of this episode, my hope is that you feel a quiet sense of maybe curiosity, maybe some relief in knowing that you're just doing it the way you were taught, and maybe some relief also that your intuition never went away. It's there. It just has to be listened to. So why do we stop listening? Or why don't we start listening in the first place? Most of us were never encouraged to trust our internal knowing, our internal compass. And in fact, I believe that our culture actively taught us to ignore it. From a young age, we learned that answers lived outside of us, that someone else in the world knew better than we did. That logic, approval, and productivity, the mind, the need for approval of others and productivity should really be what's guiding our lives, more than sensation, intuition, and internal truth. The conditioning that we've experienced is pretty subtle, but it is everywhere. It's taught to us in our schools, in our churches, in our families, in our society as a whole, that we're taught things like we should be polite and accommodating. Don't talk back. I don't know how many times I heard that when I was a kid. Don't talk back. I know better. I'm the adult. Keep the peace. Even when it doesn't feel right within you, don't speak up because we don't want to rock the boat. If any of these resonate with you, let me know in the comments. We've also been taught to prioritize other people's comfort over our own truth. So surely they know better. I won't question them. I won't speak up because that would make them uncomfortable. Or maybe it's things like overthinking decisions so we don't make the wrong choice defined by society's expectation of what our choice should be. We've also been taught to choose what's responsible over what feels good. There's a clear example of that for me, up until the last year, have been working in corporate America for years and years and years, my entire adult life. And I made a decision to leave, which doesn't feel very responsible, and starting over financially and, not currently contributing to my retirement plan. There are things that I'm doing that aren't considered responsible from a society perspective, but it feels aligned. And we have not been taught to make choices in that manner. We've also been taught to silence the part of us that says this really doesn't feel right, because fitting in felt safer than standing alone in our truth. We've been taught to ignore or to fear the idea of standing alone in our truth, and to just go for what feels safer, what feels easier, because speaking up and doing the thing that feels right for us may feel really uncomfortable. So if you've been living from this place of outside in instead of inside out, it's not your fault. Many of us, a lot of us, most of us, were really taught to live like that. And when you spend years of your life relying on logic, the validation of others, and external approval to shape your life, there's a cost to that. Shakti Ga once said it really beautifully, that every time that you don't follow your inner guidance, you feel a loss of energy, you feel a loss of power, and you feel a sense of deadness inside. I felt that for the last 10 years of my experience in my corporate job. Loss of energy, I was depleted. And when I say depleted, I mean like barely could do the things I had to do to just keep the lights on. I didn't have any energy for extra things. I had no energy for friends. I had very little energy for family. The more and more we show up in spaces that are not aligned, the more our energy is drained. The loss of power. I didn't have the choice to decide what I did with my days every day, Monday through Friday at least. I had this expectation of doing what was expected and producing for my job. I felt a loss of power, a loss of advocacy for what was important to me. And that certainly led to a sense of deadness, and a sense that, like, what am I doing here? What am I doing with my life? How am I contributing to the world? Because this doesn't feel good. I feel like a lot of us are feeling that right now, individually and collectively, this sense of deadness, this sense of what are we doing with our lives, and how do we learn to speak our truth in a way that feels right for us. So here's the hopeful part. I think we're shifting in the world. We're becoming a little wiser. We're noticing that exhaustion and saying it's not okay. We're questioning the pace that we've been put through and saying it's not okay. We're sensing that there's something deeper that's asking us to listen and and it wants to guide our path forward. At least that's what I'm experiencing, and the people I work with are experiencing that. And I think that that is something that's happening more broadly in the world right now. And if you feel that quiet readiness stirring within you, this is definitely the conversation for you. I also have a 10-day reset that I'll link to in the comments, but it might also serve you. It's an audio reset. It takes, 10 to 15 minutes a day. And it's just an opportunity to be mindful of the things you're paying attention to in your life, and the stories that you're telling yourself, and how to create more connection to your true self. So if that sounds of interest and you want to go a little deeper, that's certainly available to you anytime. So let's get back into it. How to recognize when your inner wisdom is speaking to you. One of the hardest parts of reconnecting to your inner wisdom is learning to tell the difference between the noise, the outside external noise that ends up in our head circling as thoughts, and the inner wisdom, that true voice within. So let's talk about that for a few minutes. They may sound similar at first, but they feel completely different inside your body. So let's talk about what they typically are and how they typically feel in your body. So the outside voice typically is asking you to follow the rules. Whatever rules have been established by the society, the family, the group that you're experiencing, it wants you to follow whatever rules have been established. It seeks stability for the group. It doesn't want to create any discomfort for the group. It wants to keep things stable and continuing to move forward for this group. If you think about it like a group of friends, and all of a sudden you have always done exactly what, the leader of the group has always wanted you to do. And all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I'm not going to go to that event. That creates a disruption in the group. And so outside messages are telling you to keep it stable for the group. Don't rock the boat. The other thing is it worries about what other people think. So it wants you to do what other people think would be appropriate. And it's typically fueled by some sort of fear or judgment of yourself or others. So let's go back to that friend example. If you have a friend group and you don't want to go to that event, but you're scared to speak up, it's fueled by that fear. The fear of what other people might think if you decide not to go. So how does that feel in your body? This is really interesting. Well, we all feel it a little bit differently, but often we feel it as physical tension. And over time, it can actually turn into physical ailments in your body, disease, creating dis-ease in the body by making decisions that are more in alignment with what other people need or expect from us than what we need and what's in alignment with our truth. So it typically shows up in physical tension, maybe tightness in your shoulders, maybe a clenched jaw, maybe pressure in your chest, heaviness in your stomach. Everybody kind of experiences a little differently. For me, it's little heart palpitations, tightness in my chest, but little heart palpitations. My heart is racing to a point where at a certain point in my life, I was diagnosed with anxiety. And I'm like, this is not me. Anxiety is this, I get this flush of uncomfortableness. For me, I was like, this is not okay. I need to make some different choices. So that's how it feels when you're making a choice or a decision or taking an action that is not in aligned with your truth, but more in aligned with what the outside world expects of you. So let's talk a little bit about the voice of the inner truth that's typically quieter. It's not as noisy. Your head is pretty noisy. The voices in your head are probably pretty noisy. This moves from a different place. It moves from a place of love, from a place of grace, from a place of deeper alignment. It may still scare you a little bit, and let me explain that, because I kind of mentioned it early in the friend example. If you decide you don't want to go to that party and you actually do speak up, that might be scary because the other people in the group might not accept you anymore. Basically, you're doing something that goes against society's expectations, and that will have typically some sort of consequences. But beneath that fear, there's a sense of rightness. There's some relief in making that decision for you. For example, when I made a decision for 10 years, I knew I needed to leave my corporate job. And for 10 years, I felt that tension until it built to anxiety. And after being in that environment for 10 years and finally making the decision to leave, I felt super scared when I was going through the process of making the decision to leave, because there was a lot of uncertainty if I made that decision, a lot of financial uncertainty, a lot of will this work? This being my business, my coaching, my experience of life, will it work? Will it resonate with others? There was a lot of questioning. up until the last like 2 or 3 months when I made that decision, because at that point, I was really leveling into this feeling of rightness. This felt right. And when I actually did it, there was a huge sense of relief. Your inner wisdom doesn't shout at you, hey, you need to go do this thing. It doesn't argue with you if you decide to do something different. It doesn't demand that you make the choice that it's recommending. It just sends you some really soft whispers and tells you to pay attention via your body. And if you've been tuning it out for years, the whispers are going to feel really subtle at first. They're really subtle. It often shows up as maybe curiosity, like, hey, I'm curious about this thing over here. Maybe a soft pull towards something, someone, some event, some place, a feeling of, I might be interested in going and doing this thing or reading this book or maybe listening to this podcast. And I'll give you an example of how it shows up. My husband and I, years ago, were looking for a house, and we're in a market where very competitive market, affordability is not great. And we'd been looking for many years. We'd put in several offers and never got a house. And we had already looked at one particular house, and I don't even remember now what it looked like. We had written it off really, really quickly. But a couple weeks later, I just had this nudging, this feeling that we needed to go back and look at that one particular house. My husband was like, why? Why do we need to go look at that house? So I couldn't explain it logically. I couldn't explain why I wanted to go look at that house. I was like, I just do. I just feel like we need to go look at it again. And so I called the realtor and we set it all up. And it was like a week later. So it'd been 2 or 3 weeks since we looked at this house. And we're in the car driving over to look at the house. And my husband sees another house down the street, 2 streets down, that was posted that morning. And we talked to our realtor and we were like, we need to go see this house, this other second one. And we did. And we put an offer in that night and we got the house. We walked into that house and there was like, yes, this is the house. This is where we need to be. This feels right. Let's get it. Let's do what we can. Let's figure it out. And the timing was right. The house was right. The situation was right. And that was all coming from a place of my intuition. We need to go look at this other house again. I had no idea this house would be on the market. And we've been living here for years and I still love this house. I said it just the other day. I love this house. So that's what listening to your inner wisdom feels like and looks like. It's not urgent. It's not pressure, but clarity. I've felt that a few times in my life, but my hope is that as I continue to grow this really capability to listen to my inner wisdom, that I will feel that more and more and more and be able to listen to it more and more and more moving forward. So research, let me talk about the psychology of all this for just one second. The research and the study of intuition describes it as the brain and the body processing, and it calls it patterns, faster than our conscious logic can catch up. So something is happening between our brain and our body, they say, before our conscious mind can catch up. So it's happening unconsciously. I experience it a little bit differently. I experience it as something that's a little bit more sacred. I experience it as not your brain and your body, but your soul and your body syncing up before your mind and your logical brain has the opportunity to process and be able to articulate it in words. So here are some signs that your inner wisdom may be speaking to you right now. There's lots of different ways that it can show up. There's emotional ways, energetic ways, language, and physical cues, but let's go through some of them. When your soul is speaking to you through your body, you may experience things like calm, clarity, maybe curiosity. Things might feel a little lighter. Maybe that mental noise that you've been experiencing softens. Maybe it goes away altogether. You start to feel maybe a flow instead of a force. Like, you're not looking for an outcome. You're just in the flow of experiencing life, and you're not pushing for a certain outcome. It also feels like acceptance. Your inner wisdom doesn't criticize you. Even if you make decisions that are not in alignment, it's never going to criticize. It's also never going to catastrophize. Like, if you don't make this decision, horrible things are going to happen to you. It's going to say things to you like, you already know what you need to go do. In your body, you may start to feel relaxation. I will tell you a funny story. I've never been able to, this is going to sound weird, but I've never been able to pop my back and my hips. They've always been too tight. And I mean, I'm not talking 3 or 4 months after quitting my job. Things are releasing in my body in ways that I haven't had it release in 10, 15 years. The tension in your body starts to release. Your breath maybe deepens. You're able to take deeper breaths. And maybe some of that disease starts to dissolve. As you continue to do this over and over and over and make choices in alignment with your true self, your body will respond. So your inner wisdom isn't hiding somewhere. It's not gone. It's always there. It's always been there. It's just waiting for us to pay attention and to listen and to act with its recommendations. So how do we start doing that? How do we reconnect if we've either never done it before or we've been ignoring it for years and years? Reconnecting with your inner wisdom, it doesn't require you to overhaul your life. It doesn't require you to make big, drastic decisions like quitting your job like I did. That was not a quick decision either. That was a 10-year process. It starts small. If you're in a place where you haven't done this in a really long time, I would say start really, really small. Think of it as rebuilding a relationship with yourself. There is a lot of education out there, a lot of therapy out there on how to build strong relationships with other people, how to build co-working relationships with your boss, with your significant other, with your children. There's a lot of information out there on how to build relationships. There's not a ton of information out there on how to build a relationship with yourself and how to create self-trust. In any relationship model, you're going to start small and create trust in the smallest ways. And you're going to do that in this situation too. You're going to begin with really, really low stakes decisions. Do I want to go to this event or party? Pick one that isn't going to have a significant negative effect on your friend groups or your social life or your work life. You can ask yourself things like, do I want to rest or move my body? This is one that has been on my mind quite a bit because I come from a hustle culture, a productivity culture, a Monday through Friday on all the time, not getting a lot of rest or time off. And I have now transitioned into my own business. And with that, I am still trying to let go of this hustle productivity and make decisions about rest and moving my body as a priority instead of the hustle culture mindset. It's not easy. So how do we do it? I typically will, first of all, this is like an instant moment. This isn't something we want to overanalyze. It's just an opportunity to check in. So you can put your hand on your heart and say, is this a yes or no for me today? Without overanalyzing, just feel that internal yes or no, and then move forward with your day. Super easy. It's not going to take a lot of time. It's not going to take a lot of energy or effort. You're just checking in. Is this a yes or no for me right now? Do I want to continue doing this work, even though I've been working on it for 4 hours, because I want to make it an inch better? This is my story in my head. Or do I want to get up and move and get out of the house and go for a walk or take a nap or whatever it is that my body needs right now, my soul needs right now? So don't overanalyze. Just do the little thing. And then after you're done, maybe get curious. How did that feel? Did you feel like a tiny bit of exhale in your body? Release, relief. Relief is often your soul's signal that you're doing something right for you in that moment. You feel fulfilled, you feel relief, you feel content, you feel like, yes. So pay attention to how your body responds. Your body is always communicating to you, and no one else in the world can feel that. No one else can feel what's happening inside your body. Not your friends, not your family members, not even your therapist. Now, there are people in the world like therapists or coaches like myself who can help guide you to listen to what's happening in your body more, but they can't know what's happening in your body. And so this is really an individual responsibility that we have to get to know what our soul is saying to us, what the whispers are. Your knowing lives in your consciousness. Your body communicates to you what that consciousness is telling you to go do. So as you begin noticing how your body's responding to your situations, you're simply starting to listen to that inner knowing again. Or maybe for the very first time in your life, which is awesome and amazing. And I'd love to hear how that experience goes for you. The more you start practicing this listening to these teeny tiny small moments, the more familiar you become with this feeling of, oh, my soul and body are trying to tell me something. And then one day you realize that your soul isn't whispering anymore. It's sending you steady rhythms every day throughout your day regarding what would be the next path that you should take. You might even actually experience not just relief when you when you make that decision in alignment with your truth, you may actually start to feel relief that the voice is actually, and you don't have to listen to the outside world. And it has your highest good in mind, even though it might tell you to do something that feels a little uncomfortable or a little scary. It has your highest good in mind. And so this is the beginning of a new relationship, not with someone else, but with yourself. One rooted in your truth and guided by pure love. If you feel ready to go a little deeper, as I mentioned, grab my 10-day reset. It'll help you 10, 15 minutes a day. It's an audio reset. You just listen and then move about your day. And I created it specifically for those of you who are in this exact spot of, I'm feeling the nudge, but I maybe haven't listened to my inner wisdom in a long time. And I might need some support in letting go of all of the external noise and reconnecting with my internal truth. So if that resonates with you, go grab that. It's not about fixing yourself. It's about reorienting what guides your decision making and doing that one day at a time over 10 days. So again, go check that out. You can grab the link in the comments. And I would love to know in the comments, I would love to know what resonated with you. Or maybe even tell me a story about when you felt that inner knowing or that wisdom in your life. Or maybe what might be helpful for you in reconnecting with your inner wisdom. What do you feel like is missing that you could use some help with? You help shape space that I'm providing for the world. What I create here is really based on your feedback, and so your comments matter. So please share. Let's take one last deep breath together before you go. And as always, when we wrap, notice what resonated with you today, what felt true to you. If anything, let that guide you in this moment. And until the next time, may your days be guided by your inner wisdom and filled with a little more you.